Marlin Briscoe was the first AFL or NFL black quarterback to start a regular season game when he started 5 games in 1968. He didn't complete a high percentage of his passes, but he made them count as he led the AFL with a 17.1 yards per completion. He was released by the Broncos in 1969 and signed by the Bills as a free agent. They converted him to a wide receiver. In 1970, he led the AFC with 57 receptions and 1,036 receiving yards, which is an incredible accomplishment. He was traded to the Dolphins, where he won 2 Super Bowl rings. James Harris would accomplish a few firsts in his professional career too. As a child, he played with future NFL defensive back Dallas Howell and future Harlem Globetrotter Theodis Lee. Harris played quarterback on teams that won the Louisiana High School Football Championship 3 years in a row. He was a proven winner. At Grambling College, they were the conference champion each of the 3 years that Harris played. His dad was a Baptist minister, and he nicknamed his son Meshach, which is a region north of the Black Sea. The nickname was shortened to Shaq. He was drafted in the 8th round of the 1969 combined AFL-NFL draft, and he started in Week 1. But after he went 3 of 12 passing for 74 yards, 1 interception, and 3 sacks, he was replaced by veteran Jack Kemp, who completed 7 of 13 passes with 3 interceptions in a 33-19 loss to the Super Bowl defending New York Jets. Kemp missed the entire 1968 season while he was recuperating from injuring his right knee. Harris didn't start again in 1969, and he only threw 24 passes in the other 3 games in which he played. He wouldn't start again until Week 8 of the 1971 season. Harris was released by the Bills in 1972 and signed by the Rams as a free agent. He did not play in 1972 as he joined the Rams mid-season and played on their taxi squad. Just 2 years later, he transformed his play as the NFC's number 2 leading passer and Pro Bowl game most valuable player. However, in 1973, he played the role of understudy to John Hadl, who was the 1973 Sporting News Player of the Year. Harris got the big chance that he was waiting for when John Hadl's performance faltered badly in 1974. Harris relieved Hadl in Week 5, and although he was only 3 of 12 passing with 2 interceptions, the Rams pegged him as their starter in Week 6. Harris lit up the 49ers when he completed 12 of 15 passes for 276 yards and a perfect passer rating. He chipped in with a rushing touchdown as head coach Chuck Knox called all the plays. Kittle was traded to the Packers 2 days later for 2 number 1 draft picks, 2 number 2 draft picks, and a number 3 draft pick. In Week 7 against the Jets at Shea Stadium, the Rams rushed for 264 yards, and Harris only passed for 41 net yards in a 20-13 winning effort. In Week 9 against Atlanta, the Rams ran 46 times, while Harris only passed 13 times. He only completed 5 passes, but they were good for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that Harris's best game was in Week 11 when he completed his last 10 passes to beat the Vikings with 2 touchdowns in the last 6 minutes of the game. Rams 20, Vikings 17. Rams head coach Chuck Knox used to run the ball a lot. The Rams' offensive philosophy was coined Ground Chuck, and it was powered by eventual 4x 1,000-yard rusher Lawrence McCutcheon, 1973 Heisman Trophy winner John Cappelletti, and bruising running backs Jim Bertelsen and Cullen Bryant. In 8 of 14 regular season games, the Rams ran for more yards than they passed, and Harris only had 2 games in which he threw more than 20 passes. In the divisional playoff game against the Redskins, Harris only completed 8 of 24 passes for 95 yards, as the Rams ran 42 times for 131 tough yards against a stubborn Washington defense. The Rams' 19-10 playoff victory was their first since 1951. In the NFC Championship game played in Minnesota, Harris was 13 of 23 for 248 yards, including a 44-yard scoring strike to Harold Jackson. In the third quarter, the Rams had second down and goal to go on the Vikings' 1-yard line, but the Vikings' Alan Page drew Rams guard Tom Mack offsides, and the Rams weren't able to punch it in and lost 14-10. Harris had a brutal 1975 season opening game against the Cowboys as he only completed 1 of 10 passes with 3 interceptions. His Week 3 effort against the Colts was much better though. I've seen better efforts by Harold Jackson than this. I guess he just needed to have it right on the money. In Week 13, Harris only threw 2 passes due to an ailing right shoulder, and Ron Jaworski relieved him. He was sacked 5 times by number 75, Dave Purifoy. Harris didn't play in the last week of the regular season due to his injury. Head coach Chuck Knox did not disclose his starting quarterback's name until the singing of the national anthem. Yeah, that's not happening in today's game. Jaworski played exclusively at quarterback in the Rams' 35-23 playoff win versus the Cardinals. LA ran 50 times and passed 23 times. Lawrence McCutcheon rushed 37 times for 202 yards, with his longest run only going for 12 yards. Harris started in the NFC Championship game against Dallas, but was relieved by Jaworski after going 0 of 2 passing with an interception. Clearly, his shoulder was still ailing him. Due to lingering right shoulder pain, Harris did not start the first 2 games of the 1976 season, and in Week 5 against the 49ers, he was sacked 10 times and re-injured his shoulder. The Rams were shut out at home 16-0 for the first time since the Rams moved to Los Angeles in 1946. Jaworski took over as the starter, but he took his lumps too, and he was replaced by Pat Hayden, who couldn't perform the job admirably either, so the starter's job reverted to Harris again in Week 8. However, after a Week 9 loss to Cincinnati, Hayden was handed the keys to the starting job for the remainder of the year, even though Harris ended up leading the NFC in passer rating for the 1976 season. Harris didn't play again until Week 13 in mop-up duty for Hayden in a 59-0 laugher. Somehow, kicker Tom Dempsey missed his first 3 extra point attempts. What the? In Week 14, Harris substituted for Pat Hayden, who injured his knee early in the game. But it wasn't serious enough to keep Hayden from being the starter against Dallas in the first round of the playoffs. When Broadway Joe Namath punched his ticket to La La Land, there was no place for James Harris on the Rams roster. Joe was a big step closer to Hollywood, and Harris moved down California's coast. More on that later. In San Diego, Dan Fouts was holding out for a new contract, so the Chargers traded for James Harris. In Week 7 against the Dolphins on the last play of the game, Harris's 5-yard touchdown run resulted in a 14-13 win for the Chargers. It was his last rushing touchdown of his career. By Week 11, Fouts had returned as the starting quarterback. In 9 games, Harris threw 5 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. He only started 2 games in 1978 and faltered badly, as he only threw 2 touchdown passes against 9 interceptions on the year. In 1979, he only threw 9 passes. James Harris's success helped to advance the plight of black NFL quarterbacks. He was the first black quarterback to start a season opener in AFL history, 1969, as well as in NFL history, 1975. He was the first to start a playoff game and win a playoff game, as well as the first to win a conference passer rating title. He's truly an NFL pioneer.